I want confidence to really hold women in an authentic way that feels comfortable. I want them to feel authentic in their own confidence. So it's not about putting on a false bravado or a fake it till you make it. It's about really believing in yourself and in your confidence. And I look at confidence as a reflection of your belief in yourself and your trust in yourself. So I think the more you believe in yourself and the more you trust in yourself, it builds your confidence up.
Welcome to You Belong in the C-Suite podcast. You are ambitious in life and in your career, but something is missing. You want to bring more of your passion to what you do. Because let's be honest, you pour a ton into your work, and it needs to mean more. I'm your host, Laura Eigel. I'm a mom, wife, PhD, coach, advocate, introvert, and indoor rowing fanatic. I'm passionate about living a life that's in line with my values. We'll give you the actionable tips and tools you need to lead with your values, make a difference, and have career success. The world needs more diversity and authenticity in the top jobs at organizations. Your leadership belongs there. You belong in the C-Suite. What gets you up in the morning? What drives your decisions? What do you stand for? No idea, not even sure where to start? I use my values to guide my life and career. It's the basis of how I've built boundaries for myself and stuck to them. Are you ready to dig into what matters to you? Go to thecatchgroup.com to download your free values worksheet. That's thecatchgroup.com to download your free values worksheet to get to your core values and take action on what matters most. Welcome to this week's episode of the You Belong in the C-Suite podcast. I'm excited to share my conversation with Dr. Heather Backstrom. Heather is an accomplished executive coach, facilitator, author, and speaker. She has coached leaders in many industries, including finance, banking, biotech, retail, municipalities, aerospace, healthcare, and the law, as well as many nonprofits. She's also an adjunct faculty member at the University of Redlands. Dr. Backstrom is the author of the women's leadership book, Collaborative Confidence: How Women Leaders Can Activate Self-Awareness, Amplify Their Authentic Talents, and Accelerate Workplace Change. She earned a bachelor's degree in communications from the University of Pacific, a master's degree in human resources from Chapman University, and a doctorate in organizational leadership from Pepperdine University. She enjoys traveling and has floated on the Dead Sea, walked on the Great Wall of China, and ridden a hot air balloon over Stockholm, Sweden. She's also run in one marathon, and that was enough. In my conversation with Heather, we talked about her career journey, including her corporate career in HR and a pivotal situation that shifted her career journey and personal fulfillment into coaching. We talked about her values of creativity and self-learning and how she uses those as a coach and facilitator. We also talked about the struggles that she sees in the leaders that she coaches, including the impacts of lack of confidence and what that looks like in leaders, the things they take on or don't, and how that impacts their fulfillment and careers. We talked about her book and her framework called Collaborative Confidence, which is a very approachable and authentic way to build self-confidence for you and how to model and amplify it in others. I got a ton of energy from this conversation because it was just so relatable. I know that you're going to get a lot from it and learn a lot from Heather. Let's get started. Well, I want to welcome you to the You Belong in the C-Suite podcast. Thank you so much for joining us, Heather.
It's wonderful to be here. I'm so happy to be in conversation with you, Laura.
Yeah, I'm excited that we're sharing this space and we get to hang out, at least virtually, for a bit of time.
Right.
Well, I would love to learn more about you and about your background and your career story. So tell me more about yourself.
Sure. So my background comes from corporate human resources, and I've been on my own as an executive coach, workshop facilitator, speaker, author for about the past 10 years. So about 10 years ago is when I left corporate, and I worked in several large organizations in the human resources department for a long time and enjoyed it for a long time and got a lot of fulfillment from it for a long time. And then, like I assume a lot of people, you come to a place in your career where you're wanting something different or you're wanting something more. And that's what I experienced. And I learned about coaching, and I'd always been comfortable facilitating workshops and working with groups. So I was also interested in facilitation and training, et cetera, and workshop facilitation. As my career progressed, I became more and more interested in team development and leadership development and working with people and helping them be more effective in who they are and their authenticity and their satisfaction. And at that point in my career, I was working in areas of human resources that had to do with employee relations and laying people off and writing people up for performance problems, reorganizations, et cetera. So these two parts of me were converging at the same time, where I felt a greater gravitational pull toward that more human-centric type of work.
Mm.
And my HR work was more of the, again, the employee relations, the disciplinary track
Mhm.
of that type of work. So long story short, my enjoyment or my satisfaction with human resources was going down. My desire to be in human-centric work was going up. And I became more and more dissatisfied over time. I got my doctorate. I became certified as a coach, some other certifications in preparation to going into that type of work. And then lo and behold, the universe intervened one day and I made a mistake at work. And I admitted the mistake, owned up to it, and I received one of those written warnings that I had written so many
Mm.
times for so many other people over the years. And at that point, I really was spent. I really did not have the desire to continue in human resources. And I think that as painful as that experience was, and as much as I was embarrassed about it at the time and didn't tell anybody about it, I think it's what I needed, that last little push for me to then fulfill and pursue the kind of work that my heart desires and I was really interested in. So I quit my job without a single client lined up, without any structure, any idea. I just quit my human resources job 10 years ago and went out on my own.
I love it. I love the transparency of your story. So first, thanks so much for sharing that. I want to hear a little bit more about who you're coaching now, but the pivotal moments of those big career
Mhm.
shifts, right? That is, and
Yes.
that's a huge shift going from corporate. But you mentioned like the pulling and the increase in dissatisfaction of the kinds of stuff you're doing and the increased satisfaction and wanting to do more human-centered work. And at first it's kind of just like this little tug, right? And then
Yes.
it just becomes like this gravitational pull. And I loved how you mentioned, and the universe intervened, because
Yes.
sometimes the universe does intervene through a mistake, through a layoff, through whatever it is. And it's almost like you probably wouldn't have done it if that pivotal thing didn't happen, right? But it gives
Right.
you a chance to kind of regroup and figure out, what do I really want? And can I do that? Yes, yes, you can is usually the answer. But I think this story and that topic goes back into what we're going to talk about today, which we'll talk about lots of things that we've seen in our clients. But just those pivotal moments are just so important to pay attention to. But I love how you mentioned that the universe intervened. Yeah.
I think there were little tiny pivotal moments along the
Hmm.
way that I didn't notice or I ignored or
Mm.
said, well, I'm not quite ready yet, or I need to go get this certification or this training, or I need to go do this first. So, I'm sure if I really dissected it, I would find lots of smaller pivotal moments.
Yeah.
But that one where I made the mistake was that was something I could not ignore.
Yeah.
And I also stopped and thought to myself, Heather, when you look forward to the end of your life, you do not want to lay on your deathbed and say, I didn't even try. So during that painful period of having made that mistake and getting written up for it, I looked out toward the end of my life and thought, what is it I want to be able to say I did? And I wanted to be able to say, at least I tried to go out on my own. At least I tried to do the human-centric work. Whether it was successful or not, it was that I wouldn't have that regret at the end of my life.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I love that future back look. And then, okay, so another thing that you notice too, those little moments, okay, maybe I'll do it when I'm ready, right? Maybe I'll get a certification. Maybe I'll do this. Maybe I'll do that. Like for myself, I had similar, right? I was like, I thought I was going to be corporate for a long time, and eventually I would do coaching, maybe towards the end of my career. But I felt like a tug, a pull. And then at first I thought it was just like a pull to leave the organization that I was at. And so that's what I thought it was. And it took me a long time to even decide to do that. I was at PepsiCo for over almost 12 years, and it was comfortable, and I loved the culture, and the people are amazing. Still love the culture, still love that company, but it didn't I was dissatisfied because I wasn't learning and growing. And so I made the decision to leave, and that's the decision that I thought I needed. That's the big decision I thought I was making, right? And at the time, I played with the idea of going out on my own, but I did not. I was like, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. I can't do it. And so I left, and I was the chief learning officer for YPO, and I got, C-suite experience, and I got to work with top of the house and those kinds of things, and developing those leaders. And I thought I would be there for a while, but then the tugging came back like a couple of years in. And this time I paid a little bit more attention. And so pandemic and change of leadership just really, for me, put it on the front burner to say, hey, I cannot ignore this. And I really got to understand, like, how is this meeting my values? And at the time it was not. On paper it was, but not really. And so I made that very difficult decision to leave a very cool job to go out on my own to build my company, because I wanted that one-on-one, just more direct impact with leaders to coach. And so I'm in the similar space as you, working with teams, facilitating, coaching, those kinds of things. But it's really interesting as coaches to learn from our own journeys, and we see it in our own experience, and then now we can help others as well. And so I'd love to hear more about, what are you seeing now? Tell me about the kinds of folks that you're coaching. What does that coaching practice look like for you? And what are some of the struggles that you're seeing that they're having?
It's interesting, my coaching practice, because of course it has evolved over time. When I quit without a single client lined up or any idea or any structure, I think back on, my quote unquote business then, and I think about it today, and it's drastically different.
For sure. For sure.
So it's evolved over time. The one constant, though, of the work is that I've always done leadership coaching or executive coaching, because I come out of working in corporate, corporate spaces. So that's the world that I knew, and that's where I felt comfortable. And then also because I think the effectiveness of a leader, or who a leader is as a person, it just permeates the whole team. It affects so many different people. And so I also wanted to work with leaders for that reason, to help them become even more capable, and to build their strengths, and to build on their capacity and their effectiveness. But so my work today is that I coach leaders and organizations. My niche are women leaders, generally at the vice president level. And these are leaders that the organization wants to invest in. They're effective. They do well with the work. They're respected by their team and by other individuals. And there's something that they could enhance. There's something about their leadership or themselves that they could strengthen. It might be that they could be more strategic, right? Think more strategically and act more strategically. Or it may be that they can build more relationships both inside the organization as well as outside the organization. So it may be that they are well connected, say within their division or within their area, but we all know that, relationships throughout the whole organization and external to their organization is very, very helpful and very beneficial. Or it may be that they are not as confident as they could be, or they're not as visible. Maybe they don't speak up a lot in meetings, or have high visibility projects, and raising their visibility could be very effective. So I coach a variety of different leaders in different organizations who, again, are very respected. The organization wants to invest in them, and there's something that could be enhanced that would increase their effectiveness.
I love that you're coaching folks that the organization is investing in. It feels like a pull from the organization. It feels like a gift to the coachee. It's just such a fun space to be coaching in, to be sponsored at the company level to get a coach. I just love that companies do that. And I'm
Yes.
in a similar space. Not all companies do, but many, many do, and they're doing it more often. And often it is not coaching for performance because you did something bad, but because
Right.
they want to invest in you and accelerate your development so that you can be in bigger roles and make a bigger impact in the organization. And so as you can rely on your own experience from HR, from your long career there, your coaching experience, your own personal experience, what
Mhm.
part of your own kind of personal values do you love to bring into your coaching style with these women that you're kind of investing in their careers?
Well, I think values are so integral to just daily life for every single one of us. And I also think it's not uncommon for people to not necessarily stop and really think about their values, or think about why a particular situation is so bothersome to them. I think when you really stop to pause, you can think, ooh, my value is getting stepped on, or my value for XYZ is not being fulfilled or respected. So I love this question about values. So in terms of my values, when I think about before I went out to coach, and then now today, I have values around independence, which I feel like I have so much. I do have a lot of independence, and I didn't have that so much when I was in corporate. Creativity is another value of mine. That when I coach a client, we may do some creative exercises. We might do some visualizations or some drawings. When I facilitate workshops, I'm always looking for a way to infuse creative exercises into the workshop. Or I'm also an adjunct university professor, and in the classroom, I'm always looking for ways that aren't lecture based, but that, there's a little lecture, of course, but to complement that lecture, what are some activities? What are some exercises? What are some creative things we can do in the classroom to really drive home the content? So creativity is another one of my values. And then another one of my values is around self-learning,
Hmm.
and really being reflective on in yourself and oneself, of who is the person that I am and who's the person I want to grow into, and what is my responsibility for that learning and that growing. So I also have a value for myself of knowing myself clearer and clearer, self-learning, and then applying that learning in my everyday life.
I resonate with so much of what you just mentioned.
We
Yeah.
could just talk all day, couldn't we, Laura?
I love it. I love it. And that intersection to make yourself even a better coach, like all of that, like it's like a never ending learning, and a really cool profession to have those values as well. Really investing in yourself and investing in the leaders that you and clients that you coach. So you mentioned a couple of themes of some of the leaders that you're coaching. And one of them specifically that I wanted to touch on was confidence because, oh my
Yes.
goodness, I see this so much in some of the women that I coach as well. And similar space. So, I coach leaders that are sometimes in transition. So they're either getting ready for a big role or they just got that big role. So often we are talking about the visible leadership
Yeah.
or stepping into spaces where they've not been before. and confidence sometimes comes up. And so in my own journey, like stepping into the C-suite when I did, that was my first C-suite role. I was younger than lots of people in a different life stage. Like, so there's just so much like all the imposter syndrome, just
Absolutely.
it feels like it's dumped on you
Yes.
especially in transition. And so I'd love to talk about what is this in the clients that you see now, what does this look like? What does it sound like when they're talking to you about a struggle of confidence or stepping into something big that they're not really sure? You mentioned before, am I ready for this? That's a big question. And spoiler alert, yes, you are ready.
Yes,
but
exactly.
what else does it sound like from your clients?
Sure, yeah. Topic of confidence is so fascinating to me, and I hold the mirror up to myself as I talk about it. So I just want to be transparent about that because I also struggle and question my own confidence, and I see women leaders struggle
Yeah.
and question their own confidence. So there's a mutual understanding or a mutual experience that I want to be transparent about for myself. And I want confidence to really hold women in an authentic way that feels comfortable. I want them to feel authentic in their own confidence. So it's not about putting on a false bravado or a fake it till you make it. It's about really believing in yourself and in your confidence. And I look at confidence as a reflection of your belief in yourself and your trust in yourself. So I think the more you believe in yourself and the more you trust in yourself, it builds your confidence up. But to get to your question about what are some of the things that I see, I think that's a very common comment about, am I really ready for this?
Mm-hmm.
Am I really the one? I was coaching a leader not that long ago who had received a pretty significant promotion at her organization, and she was now overseeing a division rather than a department. So she moved from overseeing a department to now seeing multiple departments as in the division. And she really questioned, am I up for this? She compared herself to other people who had been her peers, and oh, so and so has more experience in this area than I do, or so and so has that kind of experience and I don't have that kind of experience. So I see women in particular, questioning their ability, comparing themselves to other individuals, and also really speaking up and being decisive with their opinions or or a recommendation on how to move forward. I think sometimes we as women, of course we want to perform well. We want our team to achieve. We want success. And sometimes I think that can inhibit our decision making because we want to be perfect. And so we got to
Yeah.
make the perfect decision. And so sometimes it can slow down decision making, and or sometimes it can then result in questioning, oh, I made this decision. Was it the right one? Should I have done this instead? Or maybe I should have done that instead.
Mm.
So sometimes it can muddle our effective decision making.
My award-winning book, Values First: How Knowing Your Core Beliefs Can Get You the Life and Career You Want, is now available in audiobook. Since the book released just last year, the biggest question that I've gotten from readers is it available in audiobook? In this book, you'll get to hear my most pivotal career stories and some of the successes of my clients as you learn about the Values First framework and how you can take action on your life and career. The audiobook is narrated by me, so if you love this podcast, you'll love the audiobook. Values First: How Knowing Your Core Beliefs Can Get You the Life and Career You Want is now available on Audible and iTunes. I see those same behaviors. I want to add a couple. I want to see if you
Yes,
resonate with
please.
these too. Disqualifying themselves from opportunities. So not just am I ready? Like I am not ready, or I am not ready
Mhm.
yet, and
Yes.
I'm not putting my name in the hat for that. So like lack of
Yeah.
communicating, those kinds of
Yes.
things. So disqualifying themselves, not just for jobs, but even just for experiences. And it might be, I can't lead this thing because I'm doing all of these other things. well, really, all those other things, are those as important as like, are
Yes.
we signing up for too much and the things that we're doing are not the most important things for you to do? So for instance, to your
Right.
other point, if you need to gain more experience in leading strategy, like what else are you going to let go of to build and take on
Right.
that strategic initiative or lead that strategic committee? Another thing I see is they convince themselves that they don't want big jobs, which is really fascinating to me because like, well, I don't want to give away my soul for that job. And so we talk about it. Well, is Bob giving away his soul or is Greg or is John? And guess what? They're not. And so it's almost like women are not allowing themselves to see themselves or see a different kind of leader in some of these roles. And it may be that they've never seen somebody in that role. So sometimes it's a system thing too, right? It's like if we've not seen it, then we don't know it's possible. And the jobs at those senior levels, you and I know that like you have a lot more autonomy and authority to do a lot more than you really think. And so you might even get a lot more support. You might have an admin or or a chief of staff or a whatever. And so there's more room to like maneuver those jobs to what you need. And I think women are not, they're convincing themselves that they don't want them because they don't want to sell their soul or travel all the time or XYZ, fill in the blank. So those things I see a little bit more often here lately. Do you see those too? And then what else would you build
Yes.
on from those?
I do see those as well, and that idea of selling your soul. Well, who wants to sell their soul? First of all, I mean,
Nobody.
nobody wants to. Nobody wants to, and so many people in corporate do, which is
True.
incredibly sad. But to your point, it's when as you move up in organizations and you move up into those kinds of positions, delegating work. And something
Yeah.
that I hear a lot of women say is, oh, but I could delegate it, but so and so has so many other things on their plate. They have so many other priorities. So I'll just do it
Mhm.
myself.
Yes. Oh,
That's adding to you selling your soul. Like, I'll just take on this work, I'll just do it myself rather than delegate it to, Bob and Joe and Sally and Ann and so forth on my team because they're busy and I don't want to give them even more to do. I'm sure they're all very busy. And when you hold back delegating work, meaningful work, it continues to tie up your time. So it keeps adding to your own plate and your selling of your soul or the
mhm.
risk of selling of your soul. And then it hampers your team leaders' ability or opportunity, I should say, opportunity to grow
Yeah.
professionally and to learn and to expand. So you're actually hampering their professional development.
Yeah.
So that's something I would also add on to what you're talking about, that we can, as women leaders, we can get caught up in this cycle rather than kind of elevating ourselves out of it, looking at big picture. It's like, okay, what is important to delegate? Who would be the best person for various reasons to delegate it to? And now, what does that do to my time and my freedom and my
Yeah.
capacity and my autonomy?
Yeah, and the beauty of that is that you're then, like you said, developing leaders, and then you're probably building a higher performing team that can do more,
Right.
get more
Right.
done, and then I don't know about you, but I love being a leader of a high performing team because we're getting a lot done
Yep.
and we're probably getting some really great results too. And like you said, it's the career development of all. So it's almost like you're spreading the wealth instead of hoarding. You think you're doing them
Yeah.
a favor by not
Right.
burdening them, but really it's a disservice on so many levels. The other thing, and this is the last one, lots of struggles. But this is the last struggle and then we'll go into how can we build some confidence. But this last one I'd love to highlight was a recent one with a leader. She stepped into a very big role and she's now been asked to like be a lot more visible. And you mentioned authenticity before, and she
Mhm.
just does not, she was like, it feels not great. Like I had to do a video with a teleprompter and, my picture is everywhere now and people are talking like, and so there's lots of things. And so we talked about, how do you remain authentic in spaces where you're not comfortable yet, right? And how do you do that? And we talked about linking it back to her values. So it's really exciting that that people get to see a woman in those
Yes.
roles, right?
Yes. Yes.
And
Yes.
so she linked that back to her value of impact. And she thought,
Right.
oh my goodness, like, okay, that makes it not just palatable, but like exciting. And I don't like, what is the messaging, right? That I could then get out to empower others and to those and all those kinds of things. So sometimes it's even just this struggle of whatever the thing is, whatever the struggle is, how do I reconcile it with my own values and my own authenticity? And so I'd love to talk about what you think about that and how we can kind of build our own confidence.
Oh, I'm on the same page with you, absolutely, 100%. And I love how you wove in her value to what she was struggling with. And to your point about being a role model to others and to other women in particular, I mean, the Self Promotion Consortium, which does research, it shows that when a woman speaks well of herself and raises her visibility, 7 out of 10 women, 70% of women are inspired when they see a woman do that. So, for the client that you're talking about, or for other women leaders, when you feel uncomfortable or shy about making yourself visible or speaking up in a meeting, remember that you're a role model to 70% of the other women out there. So, shift the focus off of yourself and shift it onto how you're helping other women, how you're a role model. And oh, when I raise my hand in this meeting, when I give this definitive statement, when I choose to lead this project, when I'm on video for, as you described with your client, when I'm on video for whatever the reason may be, what I'm actually doing is being a role model to others. So taking the focus out off of oneself and putting it on how you're a supporter and an empowerer and a role model for other women. I think that's a really effective and authentic technique. It's not a false technique. It's a real technique because you're just looking at your values from a different angle.
That's right. Yeah. So let's talk more about your framework. So tell me more about why you decided to build it and how you teach others about it.
So I wrote a book, Collaborative Confidence. It came out in March of 2023 in conjunction with Women's History Month.
Awesome.
And I came up with this framework of collaborative confidence based upon my experience of coaching other women. And what I was noticing is that women leaders question themselves, as we've already talked about. And I would be sitting in front of these women leaders whose, resume is just packed of expertise and their education and the teams that they run and the budgets that they oversee and the high level decisions that they make. And in my mind, like, why do you not feel so confident about yourself? Why are you questioning yourself? So that was rumbling around in my mind. And then the other thing that was rumbling around in my mind is I believe women are, at our essence, we're very relational. We like to be connected with each other. We like to be in relationship with each other. So that's where the collaborative notion came up. And I just married the two ideas of collaborative confidence. And that's how the term came about. And I coined it and I trademarked it. And what collaborative confidence means is I'm responsible for my own confidence and I'm responsible for helping other women with their confidence. So there's this reciprocity, there's this mutual support. I'm responsible for my own confidence. I'm responsible for helping other women with theirs, and vice versa. So we're doing it together. And I think so often in life, we as women, we shoulder like so much, right?
Yeah.
We take on so much at home, at work, in life in general. So this idea of collaborative confidence is you don't have to do it alone. Find another woman, team up with, even if it's just one other woman, it doesn't have to be a whole group. It could just be one other woman who's in your corner and you're both watching out for each other and you're both supporting each other and you're both encouraging each other and you're both reminding each other that you are capable, that you are talented, that you are ready, that you are enough. So that's the basic idea behind what collaborative confidence means.
I love it because it feels more approachable. And I think sometimes even though we need to, I tell everybody, like, own your own career, like all the things, like we're often doing it for others. We'll talk about the team and we'll talk about other women in rooms that they're not in, and we'll do that.
Mhm.
But it's hard,
Mhm.
but we can't do it for ourselves. And
Yeah.
so by making me in charge of my own and others, I'm like, okay, well, I can do it for others. Maybe I can do it for myself too. So so it feels a little bit more approachable, and it
Yeah.
feels, I don't know, I think people still have like a thing about tooting their own horn, and sometimes it doesn't feel authentic, or it feels a little icky in some way.
Right.
And that's
Right.
just a thing that, some folks I think are better at it than others. Sometimes it's more practice, and just feeling comfortable in it or feeling authentic in it. And so sometimes we don't do it because it feels so inauthentic. And sometimes we're like on purpose staying away from it. But the way that you've kind of designed it feels a lot more approachable to be able to step into. So I really
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, if I could share with you a story that I think really illustrates the notion of collaborative confidence, and it comes out of the Obama White House. It comes out of his first administration, and perhaps you're familiar with this story.
I love this story. Please
Isn't
tell
it a
it.
great story? Oh,
It's one of my favorites.
it is absolutely one of mine too, and your viewers may be familiar with it as well. But for those who aren't familiar, during his first administration, the vast majority of his cabinet members were male, not surprisingly. And as I know you already know, Laura, the women cabinet leaders were finding that in meetings they were being talked on top of, and they'd give an idea, and suddenly it was Joe's idea 2 minutes later, being interrupted, etc. And so the women got together behind the scenes and they came up with what they call amplification. And what that meant was that in meetings, they would naturally repeat an idea that a woman gave and give credit to her. They'd redirect the conversation when a woman got interrupted. So they amplified each other. They were looking out for each other mutually, authentically, naturally, not in a competitive way, but in a way that we are in this all together. And then over time, Obama noticed
Mm.
and he changed his own behaviors. He started calling on women in meetings more often. He started making sure their ideas weren't interrupted. He made sure to give credit to women and their ideas. So they came up with amplification, and it changed his cabinet, and it changed their visibility, and it changed, I'm sure, their relationship with each other as well. So we both love this story, and I think it's a story that illustrates how collaborative confidence, what I'm calling collaborative confidence, can be put into practice on a regular daily basis.
I love that story so much because, oh my goodness, how many times has that personally happened? Like so many dang times.
Oh, absolutely.
And it is like, it is just so frustrating in the moment. And so I loved the intentionality of
Hmm.
the amplification, the fact that they were able to do that for each other, that eventually he noticed. And I love this for lots of differences, and whether it's the introvert, it doesn't have to just be like for women, it could be for lots of reasons, but just this idea of inclusion and amplification of ideas. And people, it's really interesting when you see it called out. People don't realize that they're doing it. Like, and so it's an interesting thing to see in real time. And kind of the looks that that people give, like, they say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize I interrupted," or, "Oh, whatever it is." And so there's some real learning in the moment. And as a facilitator and a coach, I just think it's fascinating to watch. But I love the idea of the intentional collaboration. So tell me, break down the collaborative confidence to me. Like, what are the pillars, and tell me a bit more about them.
So there's three pillars in collaborative confidence. The first pillar is activate, the second pillar is amplify, and the third pillar is accelerate. So the first pillar, activate, is about the focus is on oneself, is activating one's self-awareness, one's values, one's inner champion, quieting the inner critic,
Mm.
increasing one's inner champion, and also one's strengths. So the activate pillar, you look first at yourself. because I do think that your oneself you are your instrument, you are your tool. And it's important for
Yes.
you to look at yourself and spend that introspective time on who you authentically are. So that's the activate pillar of collaborative confidence. The second pillar is amplify, and that's the external now view. So it includes amplifying other women. And there's lots of ways to do it. The Obama story is just one way. Amplifying other women, going after opportunities for yourself, encouraging other women to go after opportunities, and also enhancing your executive presence. So those are some topics in amplifying yourself. And then the third pillar, accelerate, is the big kind of visionary, aspirational aspect of
Mhm.
collaborative confidence. And it's about the organization.
Mm.
And I believe that organizations have a responsibility to leverage and to enhance and heighten women's leadership in organizations, which can be done in lots of different ways. It can be done through equal pay. It can be done through sponsorship. It can be done through flexible work hours and addressing burnout. So the accelerate pillar looks at that, the organizational lens and what they can do to enhance their own company, their own culture, to really leverage women's leadership. And at the end of the day, it just creates a more humanistic corporate culture for everybody.
Yeah, if it benefits women, it benefits all.
Absolutely. That's right. That's right.
I love the different levels of the pillars. And as maybe you grow in your role and organization, you can make even a bigger impact. But I love, love, love the start with self. Because I
Yes,
don't think we can do anything unless we start there
that's
and
right.
really understand and really know, to your point of earlier, this idea of self-trust. If confidence equals self-trust, I want to know myself. So, and be able to talk about it in a very clear and concise way. So, what do I value? What do I aspire to? What are my strengths? All of those kinds of things. If we don't know, which I find is often the case, because we're not spending a lot of time there. If we don't know, then we aren't going to be a really great communicator of what we need or to go after the thing or be prepared for the things that we want to go after. And so often as I'm working with clients, it's like, okay, what are my values? And we walk through what that is and try and understand what that is. Well, what are my strengths? And it's interesting. You think you might know yourself, but do you really? And spending that time, that intentional time, is just so important.
Exactly. And adding on to all those great points you just made, it's when you know yourself, your strengths, your values, what makes you happy in the morning when you wake up, it also tells you what to say no to,
Yes. Oh,
right?
so important.
It's so
Ah, so
important.
important.
Yes, so important to say, no, I'm really, truly not interested in this opportunity or in whatever this might be. And that is so important to know what you want to say no to and why you're saying
Yeah.
no to it.
And then recommend and amplify somebody else for that great opportunity.
Exactly. That's right. I love that. Absolutely.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Knowing what you do want will absolutely make it easier. And it's almost like that filter of the yes or the no. And what am I doing? And because, like we mentioned before, the struggle is we're saying maybe yes to the wrong things and maybe saying yes too often.
Yes, exactly.
Well, I have just enjoyed our time together. I am
Me
like
too.
so excited to dig into your book and to learn more about the framework. What is the best way for our listeners to get in contact with you? Where can we find you?
Oh, I appreciate you asking. So LinkedIn, Heather Backstrom. I think it's Dr. Heather Backstrom, if people are looking for me. And my website for my book is collaborativeconfidence.com. So that's another way to find me. I'm also on Instagram. And my overall website is heatherbackstrom.com. So that would be another avenue for people to find me.
Awesome. Well, we will link all of those and a link to your book in the show notes as well.
Wonderful.
And I just
Wonderful.
want to thank you so much for this wonderful conversation and for
Oh,
sharing your thought leadership with us today.
Oh, thank you, Laura. Like I said earlier, I could talk with you all day long. You make it so easy, and you're so insightful, and we're so on the same page in everything we've talked about. So this has been a real highlight of my day. Thank you.
Thank you so, so much. I want to thank you so much for listening to the You Belong in the C-Suite podcast. If you are enjoying this content, please remember to rate and review on Apple Podcasts. By leaving a review, you are helping others find this content. We will be featuring 5-star reviews on air in upcoming episodes. Editing and support for the podcast is done by S&E Podcast Management. To get more tips and tools to help you live a life guided by your values, go to thecatchgroup.com. Keep your boundaries and take care.